Chapter 3. Alice. The holidays were fast approaching. Every time I thought I had some wiggle room, I would wake up one day closer. Some enterprising customers were already arranging for their packages to be shipped, and it wasn't even Thanksgiving yet. Scratch that. Thanksgiving was just a couple days away. Before inheriting this job, I was the kind of person who liked to have all her Christmas shopping done before Black Friday. But since taking on the responsibility of running the company, I didn't have time. I would have to find a way to fit in a bit of internet browsing before it was too late. I narrowed my shopping list down to my immediate family. Instead of gifts, my employees were getting this grand scheme I cooked up with James. True to his word, he sent the contract right over. I signed it and forked over the first installment. In the intervening weeks, he sent more information about the parties he had planned, and they all looked really good. Based on his descriptions, I could just imagine my staff gathered round enjoying whatever it was James had planned. Each event transformed the office into something new and wonderful. He was planning a snowball fight, for goodness sake, with plush snowballs that the employees would be able to take home with them. It was the kind of attention to detail and generosity of spirit that made his company great. I had a sinking feeling that he was going to earn those 5 stars like he promised. If I had to suck it up and give him a good rating, so be it. But I wasn't going to allow myself to get close to him again. We kept our communications to emails, and that was just fine. I didn't want to see him, and I didn't want to talk to him over the phone. December would come soon enough, and I would be forced to interact with him almost every day. I didn't have time to second-guess myself, though. In addition to the daily workload, there was a lot to do to prepare for Christmas. I had to hire a few seasonal workers, which meant advertising the position and conducting interviews. I had to make sure we had enough packing materials on hand, which meant clearing out the storeroom to make space. I had to talk to our advertising company to make sure they had the right sales pitch lined up for each week of the holiday season. And there were bills to pay. There were always so many bills. I went into the office each morning with renewed determination, and I left wanting to curl up on my sofa and eat ice cream. I'd been living alone for 10 years, and for the most part, I enjoyed it. I didn't have to worry about the thermostat or the volume level on the television. I didn't have to cook any extravagant meals or do the dishes if I didn't want to. Sometimes it was lonely, though, and especially around this time of year. I would have loved to come home to someone. I had a few short relationships since breaking up with James, but nothing serious. Maybe my standards were too high. None of the other guys seemed to have that wow factor I was looking for. When Thanksgiving finally arrived, I had to stop by the office to put a few last-minute things to order. The back office staff had Thanksgiving and the day after off. The front office staff was still working with a skeleton crew. They would be available to help customers who wanted to get a jump on shipping their packages. And aside from one team leader, they were all seasonal employees. I poked my head into the shop to say hello. They were busy with a few customers, not many, but enough that I was pleased I had hired more hands. Leaving them to their business, I went up to my office to sort a few things out before heading over to my parents' house for dinner. My mom met me at the door wearing her chef's apron. I knew she had been in the kitchen all day and probably all of Wednesday, too. She held a turkey baster in her hand and leaned forward to kiss me on the cheek. "Come in," she said warmly. "So glad you could make it." "Of course I can make it," I said. I don't know why, but it always bothered me when my mom was so solicitous. Dad and Kevin were in the living room watching football. Nancy, Kevin's wife, was sitting at the kitchen island, sipping wine while their 2-year-old child, Michael, played with toy trucks on the floor. Mom went back behind the island to continue cooking. I rolled up my sleeves and began to help her. Mashed potatoes were usually my thing. I grabbed the bag of potatoes from the fridge and began peeling. Chopping them up into little bits, I put them on the stove to boil. Nancy was an account executive at a national bank, so she had the day off. She was taking 2 weeks around Christmas so that she and Kevin could go on a cruise. I couldn't even imagine a reality where I could take off 2 weeks in the middle of the busiest season to travel around the world. But I listened politely to her plans while waiting for the potatoes to cook. "Pecan or pumpkin?" Mom said, hijacking the conversation away from vacations. "Pecan," I said. "Good answer," she laughed. "That's the only one they had." Mom habitually bought Thanksgiving dessert at a farm stand in the suburbs. They had the best pumpkin pie, but their pecan was top-notch too. I was still feeling bent out of shape about James, and I thought the added kick of a gooey, sugar-based treat was just the thing I needed. "So, how's your work?" Nancy asked. "I think I'm right on track," I responded, helping myself to a glass of dry white wine. "Of course, there are a lot of things that could be smoother, but I'm confident about this year." "You could always sell the business and come on the cruise with us," she joked. "I don't think Kevin would like that," I muttered. "Besides, I have some great things planned this year." "Like what?" Mom asked. "I hired a company to come in and host events for the staff," I said. "All month long, we're going to do different themed parties to get people into the Christmas spirit." "Sounds fun," Nancy chimed in. "James is the head of the company." I drowned the last sentence in a sip of wine, almost hoping no one heard. Neither of them reacted, and I realized they didn't understand what I was trying to say. "My James?" "Oh, my!" Mom gasped, her eyes growing wide. "How long has it been?" "Almost 10 years," I said. "James? Your ex-husband," Nancy clarified. She'd never met James, since her involvement with Kevin was more recent. "That's the one," I agreed. "Well, that's nice," Mom recovered, moving to the oven to pull the green beans out. "Is it?" Nancy asked skeptically. "I don't know," I sighed. "So far, so good. The problem is that his is the only company that can do what I need done. Everyone else is small potatoes or already booked." "So what are you going to do?" My sister-in-law fixed me with a meaningful stare. "I'm going to keep my head down and get through December," I said. "After that, I never have to see him again." "Why did you two break up?" Nancy asked. "He went through a bad patch." I gave the potatoes a quick stir. "And he ran away from home." "So why would you want him back?" she queried. "I don't." I turned around to face her, nearly crashing into Mom. "That's not what this is about. I just needed someone to help me impress my workers, and he's the best man for the job. It's a professional situation, nothing more." "Okay," Nancy said, looking away. I could tell she wasn't convinced, and she was already thinking about what she would say to Kevin on the way home. I didn't have anyone to gossip with when the night was over, but I remembered my parents doing the same thing when I was a kid. As soon as the car doors closed and the engine turned on, it was a constant stream of chatter about which family member was doing what. I probably shouldn't have told them, but it was on my mind. "Well, I think it's great," Mom asserted. "He was always a nice young man." "Until he wasn't," I said. "Just be careful," Nancy advised. The oven beeped, saving me from having to explain myself again. I couldn't be the first woman in the world to go into business with her ex-husband. Was it too much of a stretch to think we could keep things professional? It was just 1 month, and then James and I would go on our separate ways. We'd never have to see each other again if we didn't want to. I helped Mom put the food on the table. The china was already out, and the silverware was set. I knocked Kevin's feet off the ottoman and told him he had to go pour water. He grumbled, getting up and giving me a hug before moving to the dining room. "They're losing anyway," he said, explaining why it wasn't too much of a hardship to lend a hand. "Is dinner ready?" Dad asked. "Almost," I said. By the time we were ready to eat, the game was over. The family collected in the dining room and passed around each of the platters that Mom had lovingly prepared for us. It was delicious, as always. I hadn't inherited the cooking gene, and neither had Nancy. We both relied on my mother to bring the whole thing together. After dinner, I played a game of catch with Michael on the screened-in porch. It was cold, but not too cold to enjoy ourselves. We had an orange foam ball that we tossed back and forth. Each time I missed, the little boy would laugh. Kevin and Nancy left after another 2 hours, but I stayed to talk to my parents until much later. We had a wonderful relationship, and I knew I should visit more often. They didn't live that far away, although it would be a chore to come out every weekend. Before leaving, Mom loaded me up with leftovers. She made me take half of the leftover turkey, 3 slices of pie, and a Tupperware dish full of beans and potatoes. I drove home happily, forgetting all about James for the moment. That was until I remembered that I had a meeting with him the next day. Who sets up a meeting on Black Friday? I wondered. It was supposed to be a time of gluttony and cashing in on once-in-a-year deals at box stores, but I could only blame myself for agreeing to it. I could have put him off and saved the day for myself. Instead, I would spend Friday in the office getting a few quick things done and meeting with the man who'd broken my heart. I tried not to think about it, but once the idea surfaced, it ruined the good mood my visit with my parents had afforded me. I got home and put the leftovers in the fridge. It was still early, but I called it a night. Better to go to sleep than stay up and worry about tomorrow. There would be plenty of time to do that in the morning.